Hello and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to share the art and some of the supplies, a lot of the supplies that I used for my sketchbooks in January of 2026. So at the end of last year, I made I don't want to say pact with myself, but I wanted to strongly encourage myself to explore more materials and have more fun. And that meant to me creating more actual sketches or pieces. And so I tried to, basically this month I stuck to like every other day creating something. And it really helped improve my skill set. It helped me with a greater understanding of the materials. Anyway, it completely worked out for me. I'm going to continue to do it, and I explored through many sketchbooks again this month, so I'm going to share that with you and then talk about some of the supplies that I used. So whenever I am hesitant to start something new, starting small always works for me. It's just easier for me. This little, it's a Talon's art creation sketchbook. Something about the square format, the off-white colored pages just allows me to be more free with my art. Even when I'm using a piece of scrap paper from someplace else, just to tape it in this book makes it easier for me to draw. I'm neurodivergent, so I have a bunch of little tricks that I use to help me through. Anyway, this was on January 11th. My main supplies this month were gouache, which I have a lot of different brands. I love gouache. It's one of my favorite materials. I love water-based media as my first layer in a piece. And if you want to stop and take a look, there's Turner's, there's Talon's, there's Holbein, there's M. Graham, there's Winsor & Newton, I'm sure someplace on here. Anyway, I get some handmade gouache. I like good quality and particular colors. So gouache is my favorite background. And so that's what I kind of start with on these pieces. I also love colored pencils. So the ones I found myself using most this month were Derwent, Lightfast, and Drawing. These were the ones that I used most often this month. And then I always love my Caran d'Ache is one of my favorite brands. I use the Neo colors, and you'll see those. I use the Neo Arts. I use the Neo Pastels. So they are a top quality, fun colors. Everything about them I love. Anyway, this is their Luminance 6901 pencils. Also love those. And I use a lot of Prismacolor Premier because they go really well on top of other media. I stopped using these for a while because I was so frustrated with how often they broke. But I got this little pencil sharpener. I don't even remember the brand. I'll try to remember to look it up and put it down. I know I talked about it in another video. It makes these perfect little points, and I haven't had a lead break since. So really excited to be using all my Prismacolor Premier pencils again. So this was the only piece that I did, excuse me, in January in this little tiny sketchbook. Again, it was one of my favorite sketchbooks. I filled it up more than any other sketchbook. Highly recommend. So then this is my Stillman and Byrne Zeta. I started this back in November 2020, and I stopped using it because the paper started buckling. I have a lot of, excuse me again, Arche paper, which is, and Fabriano, that's my favorite watercolor paper. I was very big into watercolors for a while. So This didn't really seem that fun to me because I had all the other high quality watercolor paper. But then when I started doing sketchbooks, I was like, oh, actually, I love this paper. So I've started using it regularly again. And this was January 1st. I made this piece. Something new that I'm really utilizing for January are these sketch inks. They are a German brand. There we go. Rohrer and Klinger. I'm sure that's not the way you pronounce it, but these are easily diluted and they're permanent once they dry. So I've been putting down these base layers on the background and letting it dry and then come back in with these other materials. So I used colored pencil, very obviously here. I used probably crayons, I'm pretty sure, which the Uni Color 2s I really, really love. Again, they come in lots of great colors, big color range, high quality product, very creamy. Love those. And then I always also use these crayons. These are waxier. They're the Neo Art 6901s. A lot of the same color palette as the pencils. So I can get a big mark and I can go to the pencil and get a smaller, finer details if I want. And then the other thing I started using oil pastels. I haven't used oil pastels. I think the last time I used an oil pastel was like a cray paw or some horrible smelling, horrible quality. For me, I like things creamy and smooth. So I used a lot of oil pastels to add highlights like the clouds and things like that, like some of these little flowers. I used oil pastels frequently. So on the oil pastels, I have, again, Caran d'Arche, the Neo Pastel. These are a little bit, they're not firm, but they're not as soft as some of these other brands. The Paul Rubens Haya is a soft, and this Light Wish, I'm loving these. I got the 100 box of these. I did a separate video on that if you want to see. Sennelier, this was the first month I tried any Sennelier, and they have fun, bright colors as well as muted colors, which I'm a big fan of. And then also these Mungyo Gallery Oil Pastels. I used these a lot this month, again, for kind of just, I love mixed media. So this was, okay, both of these, I used the inks in the background, let that dry. Came back over with gouache to make the mushrooms, and then used colored pencil around to fill in the background, and then came back with, this is a very heavy use of oil pastels. This was a light use of oil pastels. So again, this Zeta, the Stillman & Bird Zeta, took all of these materials. Fantastic. I love it for this. So I used it more this month. This is my Strathmore 100% cotton mixed media. I use acid-free tissue paper, tracing paper, excuse me, when I don't want things to smear over to the other side. So I was feeling my feelings this day, and I painted myself a little house, not so little house, at the base of a big, beautiful mountain where I could go live and be away from everything that's happening right now. So Stillman & Bird 100%. This is the mixed media. Again, loved it. It was harder for me to, this paper doesn't lay flat, so it leaves a deeper well. So when I scan this in, I want to make a postcard out of it. So it's a mini print for in my shop. It was harder for me. I had to work in Photoshop to get rid of this well. So just, I hope that's helpful information to you. And then this is my bigger size Royal Talons, the Art Creation. This was early on, I think, yeah, this was the 7th. put ink down first, put some gouache on, came back with colored pencil. I used some acrylic ink for the raindrops, heavy on the oil pastels on the fox for this one. And then, you know, sometimes I like the marks in, and for the moon, I blended it in to get that kind of hazy feel. So this was, I'm trying not to worry about, I have difficulty with my OCD to leave a piece unfinished or not have it be to my high expectations. So this piece was, and several of these pieces are about loosening up more and just trying to create for the sake of enjoying creativity while making, at the very least, a tolerable finished piece. Then I worked on this fox. I wanted to try this paper. I don't even remember what it was. Again, put the ink down first. That's this green wash in the background. Came back in with gouache and then used colored pencil and pastel. And then I started a series of, I'd seen a lot of artists talking about kind of their comfort things that they go to draw. Some people have flowers. I've decided mine is cats. So I decided to create kind of a series of these non-lifelike cats. So this is gouache in the background. If you let it fully dry and then come in with a light hand for the second layer, like there's gouache, blue gouache on top of this lilac gouache, you won't disturb it. You just can't, if you let it dry and you come back with your second layer and you don't go over it and over and over it, you can get the second layer on top and it works fine. So then colored pencil for sure. It doesn't look like I used any oil pastel on this, but lots of colored pencil. And so with the colored pencils, some of the colored pencils, you know, some are wax, some are oil. What that means is some are hard and some are soft. So I used the soft pencils, like the Durant Drawing and things like that, to get kind of a softer, chalkier effect. And then I use the other, Faber-Castell is the hardest leaded pencil, colored pencil that I use. That's really good for details. I don't enjoy, I like a lot of loose marks like these, but sometimes for around like the eye line or something like that, I'll use a Faber-Castell because they stay really sharp. And then this was a gouache first layer, and then gouache coming back in for the cat, crayon, the 6901 around here, all around, and then some colored pencil to get some texture in on the cat. So I started doing kind of these silly cats, and then I wanted to do something a little more, again, you can tell what kind of an emotional day I was having by the expressions on my animals. So this is the Art Creation Sketchbook. And then I also used the Graduate, the Canson Graduate. I am also really liking this paper when I want a bright white paper, and it's a nice thick paper. So this is the one that started my cat series. So I believe it's Kuretake, I call it gouache in the background, and then gouache cat, colored pencils again. It doesn't look like I used any oil pastel as far as I can tell. This, I really wanted to go in, I was kind of feeling like an incarnation, a spirit incarnation, and kind of coming back into form, that kind of thing, because I really wanted to, I used ink, I used colored pencils, I heavily used pastels. I wanted to get more of a impasto. I wanted to be able to scratch in and get some symbols on this. So that was early January. And then, so this is the difference. With this Canson Graduate, I can get a nice kind of flat. It still has a well, and you can still see where the paint and the materials kind of are in there. I still had to Photoshop it, but it was much easier. So ink background. The two mountains that I did, I used the same couple of colors. This Carmine, which is a kind of a fluorescent orangey, kind of pinky orange, and then this bright pink as the background, and then came in with gouache, same materials, gouache, colored pencil, and pastel. And that was that for January. And then I did also, as part of the commitment to my art for January, I wanted to explore going to my larger size. This is an art creation as well. And so I came in and started exploring gouache, the ink, all the same things in here. But drawing small for me is easier. And so scaling up is something that I really wanted to try. I'm happy with this finished piece. I'm actually turning this into a sticker. It's funny. I think this might have been the last, yeah, it was on the 29th. And that little skull in the first art creation, this one, I'm making stickers out of both of these. I was happy with both of these to the point where I'm going to make some prints of some of the other ones, the mountains, the cats. But anyway, this is going to be a sticker. I'm happy with this. This was the Kuretake gouache again in the background, and then colored pencil, a gouache, colored pencils. I don't believe I used any pastels on that. This I did. I put the gouache down in the background and then made a base rabbit with the gouache, and then came back in with crayon and colored pencil. And I can tell I went in and did a lot of blended pastel on that. So that was it for January art. I hope you enjoyed it. I had a lot more fun using all my supplies this month because I was not being so persnickety about everything I created. Also, I am loving the oil pastels. I've been loving my crayons more than I did before, and also these waxier pastels. Really enjoyed using those as well. I think I'm going to get some more of these. And then these inks, really had fun using these inks. For me, it's easier to put a big swatch of color in the background and then figure out what I'm doing. I don't figure out what I'm doing first, and then it's like it creates more spontaneity for me and more freedom if I just put some color down first and then decide what I'm coming in with. So thank you for joining me here for my materials and art for January, and I really appreciate your support. Like and subscribe and share if you're so inclined, and we'll see you again soon. I get most of my materials from Blick. I just like their assortment. I've used Jerry's. Jerry's was wonderful. I got a lot of my original watercolors from Jerry's and things like that. A lot of, if I showed you the amount of colored pencils I had, you would probably gasp. But anyway, I've been using Blick consistently, and I got everything, I think, but my oil pastels from Blick this month. But, which reminds me what I was going to say. I placed an order in for more Sennelier pastels and Derwent colored pencils, which have been back ordered. So I'm going to get like 20 of them all at once now. So I'll come back and share that art haul when I actually get it. I think it's going to be mid-February is when they're expecting the pencils to come in. So I will be recording again soon. Thank you so much again. Bye for now.